Dr. Ashish Pathak sir. So before inviting him, let me say some words to our participants about him. So Dr. Ashish Pathak, he has obtained his DPhil on T.S. Eliot, and he is currently teaching as assistant professor in Department of English, BHU. In addition to presenting papers in various conferences, he has contributed many research articles to national and international journal and published a book on T.S. Eliot. His recent translation of Namwar Singh's essay has been published by Sahitya Academy. So with this brief introduction, I humbly invite Dr. Ashish Pathak sir for his deliberation on cultural labor and folk performance and ethnographic perspective. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, dear Najmulji. Respected colleagues on and off the days, dear students, research scholars, and other members of this academic fraternity. I'm really grateful to the Department of English, DAV College, for giving me an opportunity to express my views on the topic I'm supposed to speak. So today I'm going to give a presentation on cultural labor and folk performance, an ethnographic perspective. The reason why I chose these topics, because we are having a seminar on cultural studies, and I knew that there'll be a number of people who will talk about the genesis of this movement in the second half of the 20th century. So I thought of speaking a bit about labor, because labor has always been the part of culture. It has been an inseparable part of culture. If we talk of prehistoric times, even Marx has very well delineated that division that, there was a time when in society this relationship between culture and labor was a kind of uniform relationship. They were not separate. But with the passage of time, what has happened, that labor was separated from culture. And what happened, a kind of hierarchy was maintained in which culture was given an upper hand and labor was always denigrated, and considered to be a menial kind of activity. In this context, right, I have pitched in the context of folklore. Because, folklore or folk performance, when I say folk performance, here I use it as an umbrella term which includes various kinds of activities like Nautanki, Natak, Tamasha, various kinds of singings like wedding songs, labor songs, ritual songs, which are found in rural areas still, and at various occasions we may feel their presence even if we are living in cities and fringes of cities. So, because this folk was product of that laboring community. So therefore, I have associated with the concept of labor, and in this way, I have been able to locate my topic. So before I start, I will try to give you certain definitions of culture, understanding of culture in context of Western theories in the first part of my presentation. In the second part, I'll be talking about some folk performances for which I have chosen the Bhojpuri area of eastern UP, particularly the region associated with Balia. I hail from that rural surrounding of Balia. And if you look at Bhojpuri, so in eastern UP there are three divisions of Bhojpuri. One is Ballika, that is, Balia and other regions touching boundaries of Bihar, Buxar, Kaimur region. The other is Mallika, which is the Gazipur region, Dildar Nagar and other neighboring areas. And third is Kashika. So because I hail from that region, I have taken for reference certain songs which are called labor songs, or in Bhojpuri they are called Shram Geet. These are the songs which are sung by people while they are doing or performing various kinds of activities. So like sowing, harvesting, and other occasions, during the time of wedding, people do these laboring activities. At that time, they sing those songs. So I have tried to correlate all these things together. So I start presenting my paper. Competing definitions of culture do proliferate, and the meaning is highly contested in the field of anthropology and cultural studies. They include a definition of culture as the complex whole, which includes knowledge, belief, art, law, morals, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by a man as a member of society. Anthropologists' definition have primarily focused on internal and external approaches. So that has been the ideal of society. And what I'm saying, that in prehistoric time, this ideal was there, but with the advent of scientific technology and intervention, they got separated. And, there is enough reason to lament this kind of separation. So folk is an area which is again able to show that kind of unity that was found in prehistoric times. So, well, that is what I want to emphasize. Okay, one of the most influential definitions comes from Clifford Geertz, who defines culture as a historically transmitted pattern of meanings embodied in symbols. But scholars have increasingly realized that internal and external distinctions do not work. Culture is external as well as internal. A symbol can be external as well as internal, reflection of the internal to the external, or vice versa. The definition of culture, in addition, has to do with the development of ideas. With the formation of class society, culture fell apart from laboring activities and production process. It only represented the civic sense of society and the intellectual side of history. This development suggests that the definition embodies not only the issues, but also contradictions through which it has developed. The contradictions had their deep roots in specific regions and cultures as well. While artistic and cultural practices of social elites grew apart from labor activities, the cultural others maintained that relationship. This distinction has led to a severe problem in the understanding of culture. For the social elites, the separation of culture from labor becomes the yardstick to understand culture and aesthetics. While for others, culture and labor were never in separation, they developed in strong interactions. Raymond Williams has proposed the most focused and at the same time the most widely applicable definitions of culture. Culture and labor in the present discourse appear as two, Williams argued that the complicated transition of the concept of culture is still underway. Culture and labor in the present discourse appear as two separate activities, remotely connected to each other. However, this was not the case. The term culture earlier implied a range of meanings, such as inhabit, cultivate, protect, honor with worship. The culture had a strong association with tending and developing agriculture. Cultural activities included the growth and tending of human faculties too. In the form of cultivation, culture was also a laborious activity that gradually reduced to the cultivation of human faculties. But what is the notion of culture in Indian context, and what has been its trajectory of development? So in the morning, some speakers talk about culture as Samskriti, right? Whenever we are talking about culture in context of Samskriti, which is the Indian term for that, here it is not only man-made culture. Samskriti, the word kriti is important, something that is created. And whenever we talk about this Samskriti in Indian context, we talk about sets of values and beliefs as well as worldviews not only created by men but also nature, right? So in our Indian context, this duality between man and nature has never been there, right? Today, whenever we talk about eco-criticism and other discourses, we always find that in our Indian culture, perhaps these things have been alien. Why? Because, in the Western world, this Christianity has aggravated this dualism between man and nature, which we know as anthropocentrism. It has never been in Indian culture. And what I seek to emphasize here, that folk is one thing, where you find this harmony between man and nature, this kind of unity which thinkers are hankering after, right? So I will just give a brief introduction to folk, and then I will come to those Bhojpuri songs and their implication. So folk world and worldview cannot be understood properly by people who have a distant relationship with that world, essentially rural and agriculture. And I say this with courage of conviction. Recently, Saurabh sir was talking about his association and how he has lived up that culture. Even I have lived up that culture. I have seen my grandmother being associated with those activities, and she used to tell us certain things about their forefathers and grandmothers, so in that context I'll be talking about these things. One who has not been exposed to the mysterious and mystical beliefs of a people tree supposedly haunted by ghosts and witches in a village, or places of Dih Baba, Sati Mai or Kali Mai, may have only a bookish understanding of such thing for academic discussion. If you have not heard the stories of animated stones, speaking ponds, whispering forest, meanings implicit in dogs weeping, wolves howling, cats meowing, you are ignorant of it. It was a world of deformed deities and displaced souls trying to find their own solace in human imagination. On the one side, the spirit world was frightening and enslaving. On the other side, it was also empowering and enabling. One who believed in that world also accumulated immense power. They could see forests moving and mountains dancing. They could mobilize the symbols at will. It enabled people to fight higher enemies. So what I want to say that this folk world is a world of beliefs in which people believe in even inanimate things having life and doing a kind of communication to people. Now when I'm talking about folk activities, how culture and labor was one, like Marx has discussed that there was a time when this non-alienation was there. The laborer was not alienated from his art. We find a similar pattern in folk performance as well. So I will start with a brief anecdote and I'll come to a few songs that I have taken for my reference. I have seen my grandmother using an instrument called jat. I think you all must be aware. It is a big round stone. It is called grinding stone, which is used to crush corn. So corn, barley, wheat, they all could be crushed by making a kind of rounding labor on jat. She used to tell me that that was called Jat Sar, the home of Jat where it was there. And what was the custom that it was the duty of every daughter-in-law in a family to get up early in the morning. Early in the morning, we mean 4 or 5, that is early for them, not 6 or 7. And what they had to do, they had to grind, what is called, they had to prepare wheat so that food could be prepared. So that was the first activity. Now you just try to imagine how song came to be associated with that. At that time, there were no means of entertainment. So there were two reasons why they used to sing. One was to overcome the tiredness. You can imagine that in any weather, even in extreme winters, if you have to get up early in the 4 or 5 and do that kind of laborious activity, it was not very easy thing to do. So that is one thing why these songs were developed, to overcome that sense of tiredness, lethargy, ennui or boredom. The other thing that you will find that in the structures of societies, the husbands, most of the time, they were away for earning their livelihoods. So newly wedded wives are left alone in the sense in the family with their mother-in-laws and what is called nanad, sister-in-laws, you can understand. So the other aspect was that because they were very much, oppressed by what the mother-in-law and they used to say. So I will just, narrate this song to you, that how this song was an integral part of that laborious act of producing wheat. So what she sings, I'm going to say it in Bhojpuri. I'm not going to sing it, I can only read it. शेर भर गेहुआर सासू जोखी दिहली हो राम, अरे जतवा गड़वैली गजोबरी हो राम, जतवा धैले सांवरी झुराले हो राम, बाट बटोही आतुहु मोरे भैया हो राम, पिया से कही ह सनेस धाई के राम, एक बने गईली दूसरे बन गईली सांवर सैया, मिलल मई परहम तीसा एराम, राय बहरवा तुहु मीरा भैया कहू बवा, मोर भंवर परदेसिया कतहू न दिखाल. Right, so she is, trying to communicate a message to her husband. At the same time, she is expressing her agony that what her life has become by doing this menial labor, how her beauty is on the decline, the skin has become of different texture. So what I'm trying to say, that in those societies, what you find, what was the function of these songs? These songs were not only meant for entertainment, but these songs were also known to have, giving message to the authorities, as well as these are songs of subversion. Like one other example I would like to, quote, that often we have heard during the times of wedding, gari gawai, that is a ritual. What you find that in villages, those societies used to be very patriarchal. And it is said that women were not allowed to step out of the threshold of the houses. They were not allowed any kind of freedom of expression. But in those songs, you will find that the head of family will receive maximum amount of abuses. So, these songs were very much integral to labor, as well as they used to perform subversive function as well. So I think that whenever we are talking about cultural studies, this is a very rich area which can be problematized in this context. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. As we all know that folk tales are the storehouse of our values, belief, and identities of different civilization, and they act as a mirror that reflect the collective consciousness that connects us and enable people to connect with their roots. With this note, I express my thanks to our speakers.